right. So here we are. Today I have my partner, Stacey Petrucci. And Stacey, I kind of was cracking up when we were talking before this. I was thinking in the back of my mind, partners, and look at your camera and then look at my
I
side. And
know, right?
it's like,
Totally opposite.
and that's you know what? That's really
Unlike
awesome.
us.
That's why we're partners. You know what I mean? I
Yep.
think that's what makes a good team. And
Right.
we're definitely different people. And Stacy has not been on the camera a whole lot, with me, anyways, and she's always kind of been the one behind the scenes more so, even though she is out there. Um, but Stacy's the one behind the deals and making sure that we don't get in trouble.
Trying
She's
that.
the one that reads the fine print. If many of you know, it's not really how I roll totally, but I always have somebody double checking and triple checking, and Stacy does a great job of that. But before I let Stacy talk, one of the things that Stacy's really been digging into are these new rules that go in place for real estate agents across the board, across the country, and for buyers and sellers, with the National Association of Realtors. And Stacy's dug deep into it, and we have some questions that we're going to ask Stacy today. But first, I want to say hello and how are you?
Great. How are you doing today?
I am good.
On your
Good,
side
good,
of the
good.
world, across
What's
town.
that?
Said on your side of the world, across town.
Just so you know, y'all, we're not in the same rooms right now. Some people they probably think we're at an office somewhere, and
No.
you're in the other office somewhere, but that's not the case.
Yeah.
Actually, this is the beauty of what we did get out of COVID. I think we learned that we can work remotely and we can work wherever we need to be. I think you got a trip coming up, right?
I do.
Yeah, so
I'm going on vacation.
and you won't be doing this there, right?
No.
All right.
No, I will
Well,
not.
let's get into this. I'm going to ask Stacey a couple questions that have been on my mind and questions that I've heard, and I want to get her answer to them. So these questions are in regards to the new rules in place by the National Association of Realtors. Stacey, correct me if I ever say anything wrong, like you always do. And here we go. Question number one. Do visitors to my open house have to sign a broker buyer agreement or have one in place with another agent?
No. So they are considering open house to be just someone going through a house on their own. They're just doing a tour of their own. The difference is if you are the one sitting there initiating the tour and actually giving a thorough tour and then speaking to them on anything that might be not public knowledge about the home and everything else, that's where you start getting into a little bit of gray area. So if you have folks that are not represented by another agent and they start delving deep because they're interested in the property, that's a time that you might want to take a step back and start talking to them a little bit, and then maybe say, hey, can we sign this just for this one property? So you're kind of able to get to know the people and they can figure out, can they work with you? Can you work with them? You're kind of going out. You're not married. You're just going to sign this for this one property so that you can give them more information regarding it.
Oh, that's interesting. So just walking through it, don't really want an information. Can you hand them an MLS sheet? Does that constitute a
Yes, you can do
relationship?
stuff like that. There's
Okay.
nothing on there that isn't public knowledge. So that's not an issue at all.
Okay. Good. 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 All right. I remember when that one first came out, we thought we would have to have a line out the door
Right.
and people would sign up and stuff like
Make
that.
people
So
very uncomfortable. Yep.
yeah, I'm loving that we're getting some clarity in all of this. Okay. Next question, number two. Can I put a range for concession on a buyer broker agreement? If not, how do I handle the compensation being offered is higher than in the buyer broker agreement?
Yeah, here's the fun. And originally they had it to where we could not adjust that buyer broker agreement. So especially like on new construction or that, you would have been kind of stuck with this is what you're getting paid no matter what, even if they're offering a higher compensation. So on this, you have your buyer broker agreement in place, and you two negotiate what they would be comfortable paying if there was a need. Obviously, we're trying to get it from the selling side, but if not, where would they be comfortable? Then if you find out that, hey, I've discovered I think I can get more concession out of this, then all you have to do is do an amendment to it and raise that up, and everything will be fine. The one thing you cannot do is, if you are being offered, say, 3% and you have 2.5% in your buyer broker agreement and you do not amend it, you're going to make 2.5%. You
Okay.
cannot go up from what it is. You can go down, but you cannot go up.
So in that agreement, obviously, is when you turned your transaction in, and it's let's say it's a 2% that you've agreed to work with this buyer on, right? And you turn it in with the contract at 2%, and they were actually paying out a 3%. The title company is the one really the buyer agreement is really only going to be received by your broker and the title company, right?
Correct.
And that's how
Right.
they'll know
So
what.
if a listing agent's asking you about you having one in place or anything like that, it's really not their problem. You don't have any need to have to show that to a listing agent. It'd be the same as them having to show you their listing agreement with their seller.
What would you say if someone asked you to see your buyer's agreement?
I would say it's on file with my broker, and that's just where it needs to be. It really doesn't matter. If I'm going to get in trouble, it's going to be because it's going to be through my broker and or NAR. It's not going to be through the seller or the listing agent.
Okay. And this is a little off topic of that, but not really. But the buyer's broker agreements that we're going to have, we don't really turn those in until we turn them into the broker with the contract, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Because you're not going to have anything in the system for them to be checking on a buyer.
Okay.
If you have a listing, it's one thing. You got to have the listing agreement out there and all that, but you don't, until you have a property that buyer identifies they want to make an offer on, you're not going to have anything out there anyway.
Okay. That's really good stuff. Thank you. All right. Number 3 and final question. How do I know what, if any, concession? Ooh, is that the word now? So
Concession.
we've removed commission from our language. How do I know what, if any, concession, or can I say fee? Fee?
I'm going to say concession to be safe.
Okay. I'll start over. Number 3. How do I know what, if any, concession is being offered by seller on a property buyers would like to see? That's the $1 million question.
Okay, and what we have to remember too is this concession is to the buyer. The buyer is then can authorize for that to be given to a broker. So that's one of the big changes here. That's why we're calling it a concession. The buyer can use it for anything they want, but with their buyer broker agreement, they're going to give it to you. That's why we don't say fee.
Because they already have an agreement. The buyer already has this agreement with the buyer's agent, right? And it's 2.5%, 3%, whatever the number, and he comes forward, and now they're going to grab it from the seller as a concession to cover that fee. Correct? Is that how it?
Correct. So what they're doing is they're grabbing that and saying, okay, this is a concession to the buyer. The buyer then says, well, I'm agreeing to give this percentage of that concession, whatever it was, whatever that dollar amount was, I've agreed to give that to the buyer's broker instead of using it for repairs or down payment or whatever. And that's what's in your buyer broker agreement. But to answer the question, no, you cannot put a sliding scale on there. You can't say I want anywhere from 2% up to 10%, just to cover whatever you're going to negotiate into an offer. You have to have a set amount. And am I going to be calling every listing agent that I want to go see their home? No. If the buyer wants to go see that home, we're going to go see that home. If it's one they want to make an offer on, I'm going to put in the terms. What we're negotiating is my compensation as well as theirs. but I'm going to do it as a buyer concession.
So it's almost as if, you say you're working the deal. There, you have the fee. You're trying to get a concession from the seller, and they're not willing to give it. Say they're not willing to give any concession, and the buyer's looking at the deal, and he can't get the price the way he likes it to cover the concession, or maybe not. He may move on from the deal, just like
Correct.
any other transaction, because now he wants to find something that perhaps he can get more concession from. Or he may just look at it as the whole transaction doesn't feel good to him, and he may move on to another deal. But ultimately, the buyer's making the decision, right? Seller's
Correct.
making the decision whether they're going to pay it or not. And I think that
Right.
was the whole problem. They just wanted to decouple it, right? I mean,
Yes. That
in
was the
keeping.
whole thing, to decouple it and not have anyone be forced to have to pay out something either way.
The more I, listen to it, and the more I'm hearing about it, at first it was doomsday, but the more I start to learn all about all this stuff, I'm kind of getting okay with all of it. I think
Mhm.
it's just business as usual, as far as like we're going to go get buyers and sellers and um, talk to them, have some uncomfortable conversations in some way for some people, some not. But I think the agents that are willing to talk about this with their sellers and buyers will thrive, and the others won't. They won't make it.
It's a simple negotiation. It's just like everything else we do. It's just, instead of just negotiating on the price or repairs or whatever we're doing for the buyer or seller, we're also having to negotiate what we get, which is the way it probably should have been all along, honestly. Like you said,
Right.
it seemed like doomsday when it first happened, but it's just because it's outside of our norm, right? So now, okay, this is what it is. It makes a lot of sense. It's just getting used to saying concession instead of commission, or things like that, the terminology, and feeling like you have to tread lightly. Um, but in all reality, it's probably the way it should be.
Right. And I don't know. Can you hear the rock music playing behind me here? Yeah.
Yes.
So Brody came in and decided to play his guitar as we started recording. So he
And
hasn't
I'm
played
outside because my termite damage is getting fixed in my house. So
it.
there's a lot of banging.
Oh my gosh. Well, Stacey, that's our world for sure. I
Yeah.
think that summarizes it. We got some rock music going and some banging going on over here, and that's the chaos of real estate for sure. Thank you for clearing the air. I think we need to continue to do these. You do really good on camera. So,
Thank you.
and you look so professional, and you're way more educated at all this than I am. But now I feel like I've learned a little bit more. So, thank you, and we will see you on the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stacey. Bye.
Bye.